I personally feel very bad that a vast majority of very intelligent people are very intelligent, very intellectual people are wasting their lives either trying to make us click on more ads or on just making that extra bucks on the stock market or in the debt markets, etc. Anything super powerful that you create, people will misuse it. Is there a chance of misuse? Absolutely. So should you be scared? Yes. The AI as a set of technologies are going to automate things and therefore reduce the need for human labor. Countries like India might suffer. Whoever wins the race for AI will control the world, will conquer the world. If you look at the number of cybersecurity attacks that happen, if you can actually almost accurately map the time to when do people wake up in China. The moment China wake up time happens, attacks start going up around the world.
In today's episode, we've talked about how artificial intelligence is gonna eat over every job which is out there. And how can we fight that? What are the skills we should learn so that we can be future ready and not let artificial intelligence control us? How is tech playing an important role? How the infrastructure of tech became such a big thing in our world? What are the right ways to approach technology for your business? How you and I can look beyond just creativity and technology and build a moat for ourselves that nobody is able to replace us in the future. Today's conversation is all about technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and from a man who's so insightful that he actually provides these technologies to one of the biggest companies in the country. So you talk about big banks, big FMCG companies, every company which is super largest size, his startup revolves around giving them insights on how to build technology and make their processes and systems better, faster, and more accurate. Let's welcome Srikanth, the founder of Fractal Analytics. And this is an episode you can't afford to miss because technology is one of the most important topics you should understand in today's world. Make sure that you watch this episode till the end. And while you're watching it, feel free to comment and tell me what are the good things and the bad things which you found out in the conversation, because I'm going to be reading them throughout the episode as well. I remember, though I was running a business and I was never active in college, but there was a point like few of my friends getting in Lamborghini, like Lamborghini India, they started working. And I was like, wow, like someone got in Microsoft. And like, these are commerce people. Like we have BBA, like we all graduating for BBA now, they're getting Microsoft. And consulting was obviously a thing. Banks was always a thing. And these were getting in like fancy jobs. Okay. And one of my friends, he ended up interning with Tesla at that time. So I was like, dude, this is crazy, right? So there's so much pressure that you either want to maximize your status or you want to maximize your money. But उस time पे ये कोई भी नहीं सोचता that you know, I want to maximize my pleasure, I want to maximize my passion, I want to maximize the growth opportunities. Everybody's thinking about either status or money. So how people who are just graduating, who are in their third years, they're sitting for placements, fourth year, whatever, they're sitting for placements, what should be their mindset? What do you think people make the biggest mistake there? Like what mistakes do they make?
I think first big choice to make is entrepreneurship versus do you want to work? Right? And there's no right answer. You can be an entrepreneur or you can work for other companies. I don't think fundamentally economics changes between the two. Maybe the economics are slightly better for working than for entrepreneurship, honestly. Okay, it's what I call the spot boy effect, right? Which is people, take a train from Bihar every day coming to Mumbai thinking that I look good, I'm tall, I'm handsome, and I can be Shah Rukh Khan, I'm better than Shah Rukh Khan. But they end up being spot boys. Entrepreneurship is a very similar journey. Most people end up building companies that don't really become very big, don't make enough money. So risk-adjusted entrepreneurship has lower returns than working for somebody.
Okay.
So that's the first decision to make, and it's not a decision that you have to make once. You can make it multiple times, because you can take that decision any point of time. You can branch out and become an entrepreneur. So let's say you want to take the route of working for a company. I think what people underestimate is that industry is one of the most important indicators of success. Which industry are you working for? Because some industries have better economics, some industry care for people more, Some industries are fundamentally wired towards better returns, whereas some are not. So if you work for a manufacturing company, it's going to be difficult for you to make that kind of returns unless you are working for a consumer goods company and you're in the branding side of things. Yeah, there's some good returns to be made,
merits, right?
but you have to picking industry, airline industry, not a good option, right? Because these industries themselves have very bad economics. So first is the industry choice. Then second is the company choice. Like what kind of company do you want to work for? A really good company with the great culture, which has good prospects. Because then when you're in a happy situation, company is growing, industry is growing. People, we all explain our success as, okay, I did everything. Frankly, the lot of the external environment makes a big difference in your
Yeah.
success. So I make your life easier. Pick a good industry, pick a great company with a good culture in it, and then focus on the next few years on learning. Because frankly, you should ask the question, why are companies hiring me? Because there's not a lot I can do at this point of time. I'm 20 years old, right? You want exposure, you want learning. So don't worry about the money. Yes, money is important, and you'll be struggling. Like, and when I was my first job, I was I got into ANZ Investment Bank. Money was very little, right? I was getting something like 14,100 rupees after they provided fantastic accommodation and Bandra. I was very happy with ocean facing apartment and everything, very great. But I had 14,000 rupees in my hand every month. And if I took a cab from downtown to my home, it would be like 500 rupees. If I went to a pub, it will be like 3,000 rupees.
Yeah.
Like, basically you can exhaust your monthly salary in 2, 3, 4 days, right? So you can't make enough money. It's a struggle in the beginning phase of a career, especially in India. But I think if you focus on the learning, these things change much faster than you can imagine.
What are the top 3 industries which you feel people should pick today in today's world, so that they know that the fast growing industries or maybe the returns are going to be slightly better, so they don't end up going to industries which are slightly dreaded towards not making good returns?
Everything is becoming tech, right? I looked at this company called L'Oreal, which is one of the largest beauty companies in the world. 3 years ago, the CEO came out and said, we are not a beauty company, we are a beauty tech company. Right? So beauty has become beauty tech, health has become health tech, finance has become fintech. Everything is getting techy, right? So if you're in tech, it is the one thing that will grow for the next 50 years. It will 100% grow. Of all industries, I think techification of all industries is happening. So tech is definitely one of those industries where there is growth, and therefore where there is growth, and especially in set of technologies which are really forward looking, you can see that you'll be in demand. So picking techified industries or the tech side of industries, I think it's a good choice.
Okay.
Number 2 is that look for which are the industries that are growing very fast, right? So any industries that still have a brand, where there's big brand building involved, I think look at luxury industry, for example, 85-90% gross margin business, right? They will obviously be able to pay their people very well. It's just the economics are like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to very labor intensive industries where it's hard to make the economics work for you. So those are the kinds of things I'll pick up. Consulting is not a bad industry. Honestly, it's a good industry because as a 25-year-old, 24-year-old, you get to work with big companies, big leaders in companies, and you work on very interesting problems. So any place where you get exposure to a variety of problems is good. So that's what I would pick. One thing I will say don't pick is finance. I picked finance, and I would
Okay,
say
why?
that it makes money, but it's just such a crappy industry, honestly, right? Because it's sort of evil. that's one thing, right? Other thing is that I personally feel very bad that a vast majority of very intelligent people are very intelligent, very intellectual people are wasting their lives either trying to make us click on more ads or on just making that extra bucks on the stock market or in the debt markets, etc. It's not, there is no meaning in these industries. If you go back at the end of the day and realize that, okay, I made Raj click on more ads, what is the satisfaction in that? It's not a lot. And if I spent all that time in making that extra 2 cents on the stock, yeah, it's exciting, it's fun for some time, but honestly it's not very meaningful after a long time. And many of these people in the financial service industry, they get to 40s and they're like, what did I do with my life? Why can I relive my life? Their midlife crisis is common. So I would say pick those industries where there's a lot of learning, and pick some of these kinds of evil industries, I would say avoid, because there's too much good talent already there.
Yeah.
If you have great talent, go to industries where that kind of talent is scarce, because then you'll stand out.
Okay. So the following question was that, hey, like I'm starting out and I want to work with companies which is going to give me enough opportunity, just like ICICI Limited gave it to you. That so what are the questions me as an individual should ask the companies or maybe people, or how do I identify that whether this company will give me the opportunities to grow or no? Because when you're entering, right, every company promises growth, every company promises money, every company promises security, but once you're entered the company, like the dynamics are different from company to company. And there are some companies, sometimes you find yourself stuck at a place where you can't grow at all. So how do you ask yourself questions, or maybe you see what are the signs which gives you a surety that, hey, I ended up in a good company, or do I need to look for other job already?
Interestingly, I'm told research suggests that a very large percentage of people, something like 25% people, decide on the day of joining a company that, oh God, I should leave this company.
On the
On the
day
day,
of
on the
joining.
first day, a very large percentage of people decide that this is not the company I wanted to work for. So it's what does it tell you? It tells you that we are looking for some external, oh, is this company is well branded, does it have, do other people on the campus think that it's a good company, are people fighting for it, is the salary very high? Salary becomes the most important criteria. And then you enter the company, and on day one you realize that this is not the company I thought. There was some glamour about the industry, there was something, but really the company culture, I don't fit in here. That happens. So my advice is, try to get a hang of how it is to work inside the company. Either do an internship or talk to people who are actually working there, and get to know what is day one or day 100 or in the company look like. If you experience that, you realize that, oh, this is the, then you visualize yourself working there, then the answer becomes a little bit clearer. Okay, do I want to do this or not? And I would say that this first few years of careers are for exploration. Don't necessarily assume that this is the only thing you can do. So keep yourself open. If somebody says, look, do you want to do this? Just tend to raise your hand, because risk
Say
taking
yes to a lot of things.
say yes to things, because you don't know where you'll find that sweet spot which gives you that excitement, that meaning, and that which is an area of your strength. So a little bit of exploration is good. I'm not saying spend every 3 months keep changing jobs as some people do, right? But even inside the company, be willing to explore. Be willing to explore.
You said every industry is getting techified. The techification is happening in every industry. What do you mean by that? Like is AI or technology is gonna eat up what we're doing right now? Is gonna eat up, let's say. So I was reading about this, and I saw, I read something like an article where it says the creative jobs are gonna be the first jobs which AI will eat. The tech, because I always used to believe that technology can't happen to creative jobs, but because creative jobs is always influenced by certain things, if it's influenced by the existing data or existing pictures, it can definitely be replicated, and AI and ML can like just build better things.
I think tech is creating a significant amount of change.
Okay.
Right? So when let's say I grew up many years ago, we didn't have a computer. Right? The first computer I saw was when I was 10 years old, and there was one little computer in my school. From those days of computing, now you've seen that computing is literally every single thing is computing driven. And the way we are today, we are without a smartphone we can't survive for 30 minutes, right? So we have embraced technology in the way we run our lives, right, in every little thing. But at the same time, in work also, the same thing is happening. Like, so if you're in the creative profession, and who can work in the creative profession without using Adobe's suite of products, right, or something like that? So it's stuff like that you have to get used to embracing technology. The way you were doing work earlier to the way you're doing right now is going to be different. So be open to that. A lot of what AI is doing is augmenting humans. Right?
Okay.
So what you could do, it would take you many days, weeks to do. I mean, to just build, we created a little video game on this computer back in the 1984. It would take me literally 5, 6, 7 weeks to create a basic bat ball type of a game, it would take you like months to create it,
Yeah.
right? But something like that, I think somebody today could construct in within like minutes, right? Because tech has become that. So tech is going to make things easier. It's going to make your life easier, and you have to embrace tech, whether it is creative professions or otherwise. Now, what is the definition of creativity? There's a guy called Dennis Dutton. He says that the value of an artwork is about the underlying assumptions of human performance that went into it. Right? Essentially, if you define creativity as human effort that went into creating something, then creativity is always going to be in the human realm, right? So anything that a machine creates will not be called creative by definition, right? But so that is if you take a different definition, let's say I want to create another Van Gogh painting today, right? Yeah, can a computer create it? Yes, way better than any human being can, because it can study all Van Gogh paintings. It will understand the style of Van Gogh paintings, and then you give it a new idea, it will create how Van Gogh would have painted it. It is creating the unfinished symphonies of Beethoven or Mozart, all being created by AI algorithms, because it can figure out what would come next. So, will AI be creative? Yes, in that definition, it will be extremely creative. It will change our lives. Now, what does it do to? What does this do for? Is it scary? Should we get scared by it? I think first of all we have to embrace it, because it is going to take a larger share of our lives. If I saw my previous generation saying, "Oh, computers, I really don't want to get into this. This is some newfangled thing," and anybody who said that became extinct. Similarly, if I said today that, look, let me not worry, let me not think about blockchain or crypto or some new NFTs, because this is all metaverse. I don't understand what this thing is. It was not there when I was growing up. Then I will get extinct too in the next few years. So embrace the tech, because it is just one thing that will continue to occupy our lives. And second is that when tech embraces, you have to change the way you do things. For example, in the 1970s, ATMs were introduced in the United States. Right? Everybody thought jobs will be lost. ATMs are going to take away the jobs of the tellers, because now tellers don't have to dispense cash. 50 years later, number of tellers has doubled. It has not increased to 10x, but it has doubled. So it has not decreased. But the tellers' jobs have changed. The tellers now, what they do is they don't dispense cash, because just ATMs dispense cash. But tellers can cross-sell loans, talk to customers, do some customer service. Their nature of their job has changed. Okay. So if you embrace tech, then you'll have to change the way in which you do things using tech. Tech will automate some things, it will augment some things, and you have to fit into the new reality and be willing to learn and retrain yourself. The half-life of knowledge is 3 years or less in our industry and in many industries, which means that you have to be willing to learn. Skills get outdated very fast. You have to keep learning with the times. It is sometimes scary, but that is the world we are living in.
Okay, so tell me that what are the industries right now, like people who are watching this right now, like what should they learn about, like where can they start learning about AI, where they can start learning about the usage of AI or maybe the tech, so that they start applying or maybe just understanding their implications in the current job or the role which they're doing?
So many of us would have learned basic statistics and mathematics, and most importantly probability during our high school. That's really the first basic thing is, how do human beings make decisions? Can we use a little bit of math to make better decisions?
Yeah.
But if in any job that you're working on, you have to work backwards from the kinds of decisions you are making and seeing, will the data inform that decision any better? Like I'll give you what Fractal started with, which was in the world of credit scoring. So this was back in 2000. We went to ICICI and said, look, you have this big loan portfolio that you're building. And we said, can we build mathematical models to predict risk? That was our first pitch to ICICI. And they said, yeah, why? Good. We are interested in it because we've got some other firms coming and giving us global models and asking us to use them in India. They don't really work for us. Can you build with our own data? We said, yes. And then the next question was, but what is your experience in doing that? So we had no experience, obviously. This is the first time we were doing it. We said, look, we have no experience, but we will do research on this topic. We'll write a research paper on this. If you like it, you can do it. And secondly, we'll do this for free. Because even we want to learn.
Yeah.
We'll do this for free. All we ask you for is, if you like what you do, just tell everybody else that you liked that they should work with Fractal. So we got an opportunity to look at the data. First time we had exposure to the data. And what was ICICI doing? ICICI's goal was, it wanted to enable a 30-minute loan product. So you walk into a retail store. let's say you like this LCD television, plasma television, whatever, and you want to walk out of the store with a loan, right, in 30 minutes. ICICI wanted to make sure that they know that you are a good risk, that you will pay on time, and you are not a fraud, right?
Yeah.
You're not they want to deduplicate it. So we built a risk model which looked at your data and gave a risk score as to what is the probability of default, what are the chances that you will not pay your loans in the next 12 months. With that information, they could reject some and accept some customers, and people could walk out. So why I'm telling you this story is that it was about a decision. ICICI was making a decision, a customer decision on whether to give a loan or not to give a loan. And what they were using was, what is my past data saying? People like this ended up paying a loan on time. People like this did not pay their loan on time. So if I know that these kinds of customers are more likely than others, then I adjust my lending accordingly. That essentially is the idea of credit scoring. So it's decisions informed by your past experience. But your past experience to decisions is informed by the mathematical models that you're building, probabilistic models that you're building, which give you that confidence that yes, this is the chances. For example, if you're salaried, let's say there are, of the salaried people, only let's say 10% are defaulting. Let's say in the self-employed people, 20% are defaulting. Then you know that, okay, if I give a loan to a self-employed person, it's double the chances of risk, double the chance of default. So if you combine many such variables, then you get a very good understanding of what is the risk at an individual level. Yeah. This customer, what are the chances that she or he will pay their loans on time? So that's the idea of analytics. So if you were to answer your question, right? So if you were to go back and say, how do I learn this thing? I would say that mathematics is the underpinning, linear regression, etc. If you find those topics interesting, start picking up any sort of. There are so many beautiful courses online which are free, Coursera, edX, etc. Just pick up a course on the basics of statistics or basics of data analytics or basics of machine learning, and do the first course there, and then you can. It's quite intuitive. Eventually it is about mathematics, but it's mathematics driving your intuition. So it's very interesting.
So technically, it's like anything which requires data to make decision is gonna be techified.
Yes. Yeah. Think of marriage, right? We all it is the most important decision that we make in life, and I'm glad you haven't made that decision yet.
Not yet.
Good. Yeah, I think it's a good choice. And this is the one decision that people often get wrong. Because look at the divorce.
Because it's one of the biggest decisions in the life.
Yeah, 50% of marriages end up divorced in the US. India, the statistics are not that bad, but it's also cultural thing that how many happy marriages that we should ask that question. So can data inform any decision? Yes, it can. And that's the whole idea, right? Can data slightly augment my decisions in life? So there is a interesting TED talk of a woman called Amy something who basically figured out exactly who to marry based on the data that she was looking at. Whoa. I wouldn't suggest that everybody should do it. Your intuition makes a big difference. You need your emotions and your data. So your gut and emotions are important, but if you can support it with the data, I think then you make the best sort of decisions in life. I'll give you one example, very interesting example. Many investors these days who are investing in the stock markets are actually, they look at the data of, let's say, balance sheets, profit and loss, etc. But stock markets are nearly perfect, right? So what they're doing is they're trying to look at alternate data. So one of the things they look at is the earnings conference calls. When the CEOs and CFOs, etc., come and talk about how did my company perform after every quarter when the earnings are released, there is a conference call with the analysts. Right? That is usually webcast or telecast, and then that recording is also available for everybody to watch. Right? So for all public companies. So in that earnings conference call, they're watching the voice tonality of the CEO and the CFO. And what they did is that they've looked at this over years. One of the interesting findings is that what the CEO says is not as important. Right? It's okay because CEOs are by general optimistic. They're always projecting a good future for the business. They look for the nervousness of the CFO. If the CFO seems a little nervous about the next quarter, they know that this company might have a troubling next few months in terms of stock price. And then they're either buying or selling stocks. So there is a lot of stuff that people can do. If you define a problem sharply enough, there's AI that can already do it. So the AI is very good in sharply defined, narrowly defined problems. It's not generic. It's not like sentient beings and talk to us and have meaningful conversations where there are some examples of that being talked about. But the reality is that AI is really good in sharply defined, narrowly defined problem statements.
Now, someone who has a very sharply defined problem that, hey, I think this is the problem. And do you think that person can build an entire business on it? Or do you think that the problem is already being solved by someone at somewhere? So there's no business opportunity, it's just discoverability which is going to happen.
I think the first question is it possible to build a business on a very sharply defined problem statement? Yes. I think I would say that I'm big on entrepreneurship in India, and I do believe that entrepreneurs today who are building tech businesses should build on focused problems, sharply defined problems, and work backwards from there, because that's when you can build expertise, and you can really distinguish yourself from the others. If you want to be more generic, the more generic you are, the more difficult it is to build. And more you're competing with the big tech players, it's harder to win in those places. There will be enough. There'll be some guy who will come up and raise $1 billion in 3 months, and then and build something great. It's going to happen. But if as an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs are not going to be that. So if you want to drive success as an entrepreneur, pick a sharply defined problem and work with it, rather than a very loosely defined, very big problem. Now, if you pick up even a small niche, the size of the prize is huge, because if you spend it globally, you can really make a big business out of even a tiny idea. There are lots of tiny ideas which can become really well funded and then eventually become big these days. So I would say that don't worry about the size of the market that eventually initially it appears. If you have a sharply defined problem, you can solve that very well. Then you have a very good chance of winning, because you can differentiate yourself. You understand the business process very well. You understand a problem and work backwards with it, and that's when you can build customer traction, client traction, and then you can scale it afterwards. So that's what I would suggest to any entrepreneur: pick a sharply defined problem than a loosely defined problem.
Makes sense. Now, but how do they build business around it now, AI, in the world of tech? Like, so someone who's a non-techie and they want to do something in the tech, what should they do? What should be the guiding steps for them?
So if you're a non-techie, there are only two kinds of people who should start a business.
Okay.
Right? The really techie ones, right, who get the tech, who are tech evangelists, and these are the ones who are building. If you look at the best companies that have been created in the last 20, 30 years, you will find that they're super great technologists. Like it's Mark Zuckerberg, or if you look at Google founders, Sergey Brin, Larry Page, and so on. If you look at these guys, these are very sharp techie, or Elon Musk. They have their technologist brain that is there, which is one of the defining characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. The other ones are great leaders. Right? So you have a right to be on this business, either if you are a great CEO, the great leader, or a great techie. Otherwise, if you're not either of them, then I think somebody else should run this business, like in tech business. So, and if you are one of them, find the other. If you're the great CEO types, the great leader who can bring in great empathy, lead people very well, etc., all of that good stuff, then find a phenomenal techie as an equal partner.
Yeah.
Don't think that, okay, I am the techie and I'll give 2% equity to this really good tech guy and I'll make him or her build a little software product and then make a business. Yeah, I don't think it'll work, because businesses are so tech intensive right now. You need a very critical CTO in that business who has equal share or very high share of the business with you. So if you're the CEO type, if you're the CTO type, then you want to build a great product, but you don't want to really commercialize the product. You want somebody who can commercialize, who can hire people, who can build Salesforce. Then find that very good CEO to work with. That combination of CEO, CTO is what is driving most successful entrepreneurship businesses.
That's interesting. It's like the same philosophy which goes behind, right? Either you are a seller or you're a builder. So if you're a builder, then find a seller. If you're a seller, then find a builder.
Fantastic, yeah.
Because there are rarely anyone who's both.
Yes.
And if you're both, then nothing can stop you.
Exactly. There are very, very few people who are both. And even if they're very good in both, you still want whichever is your dominant characteristic, find the other one in the co-founder that you're looking for. The two people entrepreneurship teams have been the most successful. If you study entrepreneurship and what has driven success, there's Hewlett Packard onwards. If you look at it's always a combination of two people with complementary skills who have great amount of trust with each other that have created the best businesses.
should we be worried about the technology which is coming? Should we be worried about AI? Like, if some people build some product, they can by far kill jobs in an entire industry if they build some products in it.
Yes. See, I think there are reasons to be super optimistic and the reasons to be super scared.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I think when I was 12 or 11, 12 years old, you will find it very funny. But the topic in school debates used to be, is science a boon or a bane? That was the topic. I've done that,
Yeah.
you know,
the
debate a few times.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah. I mean, come on, it just looks duh, right? I mean, obviously, science. It's a similar thing is technology a boon or bane? Is AI a boon or bane? The answer is it is both. Anything super powerful that you create, people will misuse it. Is there a chance of misuse? Absolutely. So should you be scared? Yes, there are fundamental misuse cases, and I'll come to some of them shortly, which you should be scared about. Is it exciting? Super exciting, because it is going to change the world. If you have any chance of eliminating poverty in this world, creating more social equality, all the good outcomes will be, AI is needed. And AI can also create some extraordinarily bad outcomes. So that is unfortunately the nature of the beast. Now, what are the bad outcomes? Because you were asking, let me tell you the bad stories first. Right? The first bad outcome is loss of jobs. Right? Especially in a country like India. Let's say 2020 to 2030, India adds 91 million people to its workforce. 91 million people to the workforce. Rest of the world collectively, G20 especially, is zero to the workforce, because China is already starting to shrink. Rest of the world is also starting to shrink. India is a net supplier of talent to the world. Right? That is the reality. Right? And if AI as a set of technologies are going to automate things and therefore reduce the need for human labor, countries like India might suffer. So that's the first big danger. It's a huge opportunity for India, but it also this is a big risk. Number one. Number two is autonomous weapons. I think in 2017, Vladimir Putin said that whoever wins the race for AI will control the world, will conquer the world. Right? Okay. He made that statement, and Vladimir Putin doesn't make statements just like that. People take notice of that. So I'm told that the U.S. government, when that statement was made, instantly there was a lot of sort of discussion in the U.S. as well. What does it mean? What are they thinking? What are they doing? Because that race started around 2014, 2015. It started around the world, countries competing with each other on AI. Right? So China, Canada had the lead, by the way. Canada had some of the best professors, some amazing work. Canada, Israel, UK, US, China, leading the pack. And India and others are sort of next. That was the case in 5, 6, 7 years ago. And then where is the first option, first places where they will deploy it? Cyber security and cyber attacks, right? So if you look at the cyber warfare, that is the next warfare is going to be cyber warfare, right? Big warfare is going to be on cyber warfare. It's already happening every day. Like I'm told that when you wake up, not when you wake up. If you look at the number of cyber security attacks that happen, if you can actually almost accurately map the time to when do people wake up in China. The moment China wake up time happens, attacks start going up around the world. So there is a huge set of attacks happening from China on the world in terms of cyber attacks, and they go down as soon as Shanghai goes to sleep. Attacks also come down. It's circumstantial, but the point is that there are a lot of cyber security wars that are taking place, cyber wars that are already taking place, and AI is being used both to attack as well as to defend. That's one. Second is autonomous weapons. Like you can have swarm of drones, doing targeted killings. Already you saw drones killing various people in Pakistan. US used those drones, very sharply defined. They become so good. Their eyes, brains, etc., are all powered by AI, right? So that is there. But now the next level of AI tech, you can think of a Iron Man suit for every person, right? Just think of every soldier having an Iron Man suit and being an Iron Man. AI will create that. AI can basically create various kinds of autonomous weapons that are very, very intelligent, targeting precisely what they want to do. And in that world, if you don't have it, then you're screwed, essentially, right? So that is another dangerous situation on autonomous weapons. So the two. The third is just sheer manipulation of, this is more day to day our lives, right?
Yeah.
Sheer ways in which tech companies can manipulate you to doing whatever. We already think that we all think we have free will, but I can tell you that many of the decisions we make today are influenced by the little things that we see every day,
Yeah.
and the way that things are designed, the way things are. They use a lot of AI and behavioral sciences to make sure that you click on the right ad, buy the right product. So you think you have
Watch
free
the
will.
kind of content, like
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So if they're collecting all your data and using this to manipulate you, who's fighting for you? Right? You need your own AI to defend the AIs that are influencing you. Right? So these are all the sort of dystopian scenarios of the world being more like 1984, autonomous weapons and all of that stuff. So those are the dystopian scenarios. Now many of them are real. It's not that they're very far out. They're very real. But the positive sides of this are also very big. Like just imagine the ability to just GDP growth, right? Last 50 years, world economy grew at a 3.5% annualized rate.
Okay.
Right? If you look at that, was because half of that came from labor growth and half of that came from productivity growth. So economic growth is essentially labor growth and productivity growth. So next 50 years, labor growth is not happening. Only India is producing the labor, like we just discussed. So you need productivity growth. So how can you improve productivity? Meaning same number of people doing more with
More
their
work.
time and creating more output. You need tech. You need
Yeah.
AI to drive that. It is the most, let's say, well-researched, most established way of driving productivity is using AI. So that's one thing. Secondly, companies are spending tons and tons. Let's say product launches. 95% of new product launches always fail. So can you use to build better products that consumers love? Yes, you need AI for that. Can you reduce the friction between customers' intent and their purchase? You need AI for that. Can you reduce your supply chain inefficiency so that you don't have these supply chain shortages? Like there is baby food shortages in the US right now, and there's no instant formula available in the US. Supply chain shortages are creating, cars are getting delayed. All of that, car prices are going up. Can you have more intelligence embedded into the enterprises so that they can make better decisions in supply chain? Yes, absolutely. So there are countless number of examples of companies trying to get better using AI so that they can serve the customers better, build better products, make our lives easier. It will rise incomes. All those things will also happen with AI. It will make our life a lot easier. Let's say if you go to Victorian England, right? Nobody had even there were no toilets. Even if you're the Queen of England, right? You don't have access to a commode and a flush tank and all of that stuff. These are all happened in the last 150 years. Our lives are infinitely better because tech has made all these things easier. So tech will make our life a lot easier, and that is the good part of what AI will do.
What's the most fascinating use which you have ever heard of, or maybe seen, or you excited to think about?
One thing I'll say is that Arthur C. Clarke, one of the major science fiction writers of our time, right? He wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey and a bunch of other brilliant sci-fi books. He said in the 1950s that any sufficiently advanced technology is virtually indistinguishable from magic, right? So if you any tech, I mean, if you showed somebody in the 18th century that we have cell phones, they will say this is magic. They would not believe it, right? It was magic even back in 1990s. It was magic, like when you could imagine that, right? But now we feel like, so what? This is what is AI got? What is tech got to do with it? It's so obvious, right? So tech is magic and then becomes mundane. It very soon in 5 years it becomes mundane. And generally speaking, we are always over optimistic about tech in the short term and extremely pessimistic about tech in the long term. And we think that tech will change our lives in 3 years and it doesn't happen. And we feel like, look, they kept saying that. But if 10 years later the world has really changed, because it is like that. It is compounding, which is in play. So a lot of examples that you currently find are magic will feel like, yeah, it's obvious. So what? So big deal. So a couple of examples I'll mention which I find to be very fascinating. And let me give you a sort of range of examples. There's a new program that, a new sort of AI algorithm that the company DeepMind has created, which basically writes code as a programmer, right? And it matches the average programmer, beats an average programming in writing computer code. Just imagine if AI can write computer code, then what is going to happen? All the computer programs in the world, it's already matching the average. So you give them vague instruction. This is what I want to
Wow.
accomplish. It writes a set of computer code which accomplishes that, and it's matching an average computer programmer. This is just 3 months ago, right? Giving you another DeepMind example, there's one vexing problem in the world of chemistry, biochemistry, viruses, all of these things, which is to detect and diagnose, understand the three-dimensional structure of a protein. So there are 200 million proteins in the world. It's really huge number of proteins exist, right? And we know the structure of some 200 of them. So it's a big problem. If we know the structure of a protein, what it does is it can help you create, for example, a vaccine. So the COVID virus was eventually there's a protein involved there. If you knew the protein three-dimensional structure, you know exactly the kind of vaccine which will go and bind to it and therefore stop from replicating, right? But knowing the three-dimensional structure is very hard because you can't see it. It's too small to be seen even with a crystal microscope, etc., crystallography, etc. You can't see the exact structure. So you have to estimate that structure based on machine learning, right? And this is a 50-year-old problem. And now DeepMind has built a set of techniques which basically taken this to another level in terms of figuring out the three-dimensional structure of that protein, which is the one reason if we are able to fight diseases, it will be because we have figured out the protein structures of these viruses and etc. faster. So this is another. These are magical cases, but these are examples. Now, another example I'll give you is what OpenAI did a couple of years back, which is about they built this thing called GPT-3.
Okay.
Right? So if you give it, for example, a paragraph and ask it to write the next few paragraphs of the story, it writes it
automatically. Yes.
And it does a phenomenally good job. So these are kinds of things you feel like, where is it learning? And how does this coming up from, right? Because now once the complexity of the system of the data, what is GPT-3 using? It is using all the data of the internet. It's got everything. So just imagine like an average doctor, or a radiologist is seeing something like, maybe 5 patients a day, 10 patients a day, 100 patients a day, right? And 100 patients a day into 1 year is, let's say, 3,000 patients a year, 30,000 patients a year. And let's say in 20-year career, maybe 6 million. I mean, I'm just exaggerating a lot. But an AI algorithm can look at all those X-rays, etc.
At once.
In 15 minutes, what he will see in a whole career. So it is seeing a lot of data, and therefore it can get better. So this GPT-3 is seeing all the data on the internet, watching all the YouTube videos, and then learning from it. Can it not get better than human beings?
Of course.
Yeah. So one funny example. This is 2012, but it's still funny. Is that the Google guys wrote this paper. Now it's famously called the CAT paper. What they did was they exposed an AI algorithm to a bunch of YouTube videos, and it came up and said, I'm seeing one common feature in many of the YouTube videos, which is a furry little creature that I see, which is about cat videos on YouTube.
Oh.
It figured out that there's a lot of cat videos on YouTube. It did not have a concept of cat, but it figured out the concept of cat looking at the videos.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is that AI can, what you have to understand is how AI programs learn. If you can tweak the learning algorithm to such an extent that it sees more information, it learns the right information, retains the right information from it, then because it doesn't have any hardware limitations, software limitations, processing limitations like you and I have, it can learn anything in the world and everything in the world. Then it can be an all-seeing, all-powerful being, which can, the highest IQ being in the world, right? It can be. That's really the power of AI algorithms.
Crazy. So other area of interest is behavioral economics for you. Okay, and this is very fascinating for me as well. What is it? Can you explain people easily, like what is behavioral economics?
So behavioral economics started because people understood that we all think that human beings are rational. Like for the last 100 years, if you look at the history of economics as a subject, it was all with the assumption that human beings make the rational optimal choice. It was a mathematical model of a human being that she or he makes the best choice for themselves at any point of time by weighing all the options and pros and cons of every option and doing the right thing at the right time. Now, we all know that that is not the case.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, but why was economics saying that? Because mathematically it was easier for them to. So it's like saying there's light in this room. Let me search for my keys here, though I lost my keys in that room where there's no light. Right? It's like, no, you have to fit that model to the how humans actually behave versus how you want them to behave, because your mathematics works better that way. So this was in the 1960s and 70s. People started talking about a new way of economics, which is, let's see how people actually behave. Right? I mean, if behavioral economic, if human beings were rational, you and I will both wake up at 4 a.m. every day, do 1 hour of meditation, then exercise, then take care of our diet and do all kinds of good things in life, right? So we know what is good for us. We don't necessarily do them.
Yeah.
So rational model of human behavior doesn't work. Human beings are make a lot of choices based on emotions. In fact, emotions are one of the most important ways in which we make choices. Yeah. How do we know that? Basically, there are scientists have looked at people who have got various kinds of accidents, who have lost parts of their brain. So one such set of experiments is about people who have lost one part of the brain which cuts off all their emotions. They're perfectly good people. They can think very clearly. They'll score good scores on IQ tests, but they don't have any emotional sensitivity anymore. Right? People thought, great, you're getting rid of emotions. Now people can make much more rational, logical decisions. It turns out these people are not able to make any decisions. So if you give them two things, they're always looking, should I do this or should I do that? They're never able to make up our mind. It turns out that human beings use emotions in making decisions.
Yeah.
Right? You have some data, but the way we make decisions is first use emotions and then use rationality to justify that decision. I already want to go out with her, right? But now I'm coming up with some rational decisions to why I should go out with her, or something like that. Or I already want to join this company as this job. I want to take up this job, or I wanted to buy this product. And then you say that, look, it is a good product. I know, look at the Apple, store ratings, or look at this. We come up with various justifications to explain why we do behave what we do. So the model of human behavior, as one of the scientists called Jonathan Haidt writes, he says it's like a rider sitting on top of an elephant. Think of a rider, little rider who's sitting on a big, massive elephant. Our human brain is like that. The elephant is all powerful. It's not rational. Elephants are illiterate, right? They can't read or write. They'll do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And a little rider is sitting on top and trying to control the elephant. It will not do that. So let's imagine the same example we were discussing earlier. Let's say at 10 p.m. at night, I go to sleep and I have this resolution. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow. I will do 1 hour of meditation. Then I will do yoga. Then I will do some studying if I'm a student, etc. I have all these things. And so that is the rider making all these resolutions.
Yeah.
Right? At 4 a.m. when the alarm goes off, the elephant says, no, I'm not getting up. Buzz off. When elephant says no, the rider has no control.
Nothing.
Because rider is not powerful. He's a very small little guy sitting on the elephant. So you have to shape the elephant to do what you're doing. Right? And when we make decisions, the elephant is actually making the decision. And the rider sitting on top of that is the lawyer, is justifying, is coming up with a narrative to justify the. So the rider is essentially used by the elephant to justify its decisions. He or she is the lawyer. So that, if you think of that, then the question is, if human beings actually make decisions like that, their choice is not necessarily rational. Things like a simple test, for example, if I ask you if just to get you to make irrational choices, let's say if I asked you a question around guess a two-digit number, right? And let's say you pick a high two-digit number. Right? Let's say I'll ask you to guess a two-digit number between 10 and 100. Let's say you picked 90, right? And then after that, if I ask you a question, your chances of a number, let's say I ask you how many, what is the average test batting average of Sachin Tendulkar? That if you if you picked a high number earlier, you will pick a higher average for Sachin Tendulkar because I've primed you with a higher number. So our decisions are very biased by what we see immediately in the last few minutes. So if you start to understand how human beings actually make decisions, you have to help them in making better decisions. So, an example.
This
right?
is so true. Like, I'm just thinking right now, you just asked me, And all of a sudden, I didn't even think of number under the 90. I just thought about like above 90 just because I was primed that way. I
Exactly.
never even thought of his batting order. I don't even remember that if I've seen 100 matches, I've know any shit about it.
Exactly. So a little priming can change the way you will make decisions. If I want, for example, if I wanted to you to buy, let's say this book that is sitting here, right? I'll show you a book which is worth 5,000 rupees and say, look, do you want this 5,000 rupees book? And you say, oh, this is too expensive. Then I'll show you this book and say, this is only 500 rupees. You say, oh, wow, so cheap. Let me buy it. So if you see a very expensive product, the chances that you'll buy the next product, it'll feel like a bargain to you, even though it may not be a bargain. So if you're a salesman, right, what you do in a shop, you don't see bad salesmen do that, which is like they show you the cheapest product first and they show you more and more expensive products. The great salesmen, what they do is they show you the most expensive product first. They show you the Ferrari in the showroom. Look at this brilliant Ferrari, such a great product, $1 million. And then you have to buy a little, $100,000 car. Yeah, looks cheap. So that's the way in which human beings can be manipulated, but we are not necessarily rational in the way we make decisions. Right? So how do you use this insight in the way you deal with customers? So one of the major psychologists of the 20th century, his name is Kurt Lewin. He says that most of the time when we are trying to make people do some things differently, all human behavior is explained by it's an equilibrium between what are forces that are driving you to make a decision and what are the forces that are restraining you from making a decision. Your net decision is an equilibrium of these two forces, right?
Yeah.
So any decision if you take, let's say you are thinking of buying this next iPhone for 1 lakh rupees.
Okay.
There are some forces that are driving you to make that decision, which is, your friends will find it cool, you will find it cool, it's got all these features, it's you want to look good, etc. And there are some restraining forces that are coming in the way of making that decision, like I don't have the bank balance. You're thinking of various kinds of things, or you're thinking of, oh, how do I don't have that much limit on my credit card. You're thinking some of that stuff. If I make some of that a little easier, if I remove the roadblocks from making that decision, the chances of, if you drive your behavior, I can say, hey, look, I'll give you 5% off, or I'll give you this headphones free, or I'll give you this case with the iPhone free. On top of that, I can give you some forces which increase your incentive to buy that phone. Or I can do something much easier, which is to reduce some of the restraining forces. What are some of the restraining forces? For example, you don't have the money. So if I give you a credit card, you're more likely to buy than you have to buy with cash.
Buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later, right? These kinds of mechanisms, or just make it one click buy. You go to Amazon website, you click it once, you don't have to add it to cart, go to checkout, you just say one click and you buy it. So when you reduce the restraining forces around what prevents you from buying, you'll buy more. So these are the ways in which you can use human behavior to drive actions. So the idea is that eventually we all want to do some good things in life, but we don't always achieve our intentions. So yes, you can use behavioral sciences to manipulate consumer behavior. I've given you bunch of examples, but you can even use human behavior to hack your own behavior to a certain extent, so that you can do what is right for you.
Wow.
So that's the idea of behavioral science.
What is the most fascinating thing you've understood about Indian consumers? Like, is there anything which you have noticed, or you have read, or you were told to do so, or it's just something which you found out which is very fascinating? Oh, Indian customers are different than other people. This is the way we react, the way we behave. This is one thing which is very fascinating.
I think that my sense is that, again, I'm not an expert on Indian consumer behavior. This is one topic that I'm not an expert at. My own sense is that human beings are all very similar across cultures. There is a lot of commonality. The differences are coming only because of the cultural context or the historical context of our country versus the other countries, etc. So if you take that cultural context away, consumers are the same across. There are some universal ways in which we behave, which is sort of amazing, because even in societies which are not been touched by, let's say, modernization, you'll see the same principles apply. Like when we were just discussing Bob Cialdini's seven principles of influence, what you would see is that these principles apply whether in tribal societies which have not been affected. So these fundamental ways in which we think, we behave, are similar across all cultures. Especially if in India, I think we are highly influenced by the stories that we listen to as kids. I see that Indians are, we are all driven by the stories that we hear, and our mythology, our culture, very rich tradition and
Yeah.
culture that we have. These stories give us these lessons. So every single thing that we implement every day is coming from some story from Ramayana, some story from
Yeah.
Mahabharata,
My
some
family is big on it.
exactly the Upanishads, because this is the cultural context in which we are growing up. So the principles of psychology remain, but the stories that we use are what drives our behavior in line with those principles.
Yeah.
That combination is what makes Indian principles unique.
True. I can relate to this because I remember, I think the, like, just the thought that good intention wins has been taught us by so many stories about Ramayana, Mahabharata, Krishna story, everything. Like, no matter how big the other person's army is, or how talented, or how rich, or like how well equipped the other person is, if your intention is good, you win. So never have like a bad intention. Like this one thing, just because I've heard it in Ramayana and other like other mythological events or the stories which you hear,
I'll
it just
say
goes
two,
away with it.
I'll say two things here. One is one thing I like to measure in any economy is the trust index. What is the measure of trust in the economy, right? So the more trust there is in the economy, the more it'll grow. It's such a beautiful equation. The more trust, the faster is the growth rate of the economy, right? And if you look at, I think one thing I noticed as I was growing up was that Indian economy had low trust. Like it was like there's so much of yeah, people cheating each other, etc. Fundamentally, before I do business with anybody, I have to do a lot of checking because buyer beware. That's and as the trust increases, the economy becomes better and better. I've seen that change happening. It needs to. There are a lot more changes required because as a country that has gone through a tough past, right? That restoring that trust in the economy is very important. If you look at, if you want to do a deal, for example, a venture capital deal or a private equity deal in the US, it takes 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. Sometimes it's, famously, Berkshire Hathaway or Warren Buffett did a deal. He bought a little company from Walmart. He did this deal in 30 minutes. It was a multi-billion-dollar deal. 30 minutes, he writes in his book, right? In one of his interviews, he talks about that because there's such a high trust in that conversation. They knew that if something went wrong, they will both talk to it and understand. Value discovery will happen. So there's such a high level of trust. Courts work. You can prosecute, and in general, there's an understanding that we will work it out. That trust index has to go up, and for whatever reasons of our history, that trust index needs to grow up in our economy. That is number one. Number two, I think, is that it's unfortunate, but the 300 years of colonial rule in India, right, has left a very distinct, very bad
dent on us.
right? It has really dented our confidence as a nation, right? It has really dented. And so it means that we are fundamentally always thinking that the West is good, America is good, UK is good, or all these countries. We still sometimes feel like we have to ape the West. I'm wearing a suit today. I'm not wearing a kurta or a pajama, right? Because I know that this is what is being well dressed, right? We have all definitions that we've borrowed from there. We have to grow into that confidence of saying, okay, this is our country, this is who we are, and we are good as we are. We don't have to be someone else to be good. And so that 300-400 years, it will take some more time. But I see big changes happening in our country, right? Which is around just the sheer entrepreneurship is that force, right? I mean, I meet these 20-something entrepreneurs right now and I feel like, oh, my God, I wish I was 20 years old because when I was 20 years old, raising money was impossible, capital wasn't there, and so many other things were there. Today, these entrepreneurs are so bold. I met a guy who was doing some HR startup. Um, and I asked him, as I was talking to him, how will you compete with LinkedIn? Because LinkedIn can do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he looked at me straight face and says, I'm going to buy LinkedIn. I said, really? But it's now part of Microsoft. But he said, no, but it's okay. I'll still buy it. Like, I'll buy Microsoft. I was like, okay, I mean, this is obviously a little extreme. But what I'm trying to say is that the confidence, the
At 20.
bravado of the Indian entrepreneur. Eventually, not everybody will succeed, but some will succeed. There'll be a few that will succeed, and that will change the country. I feel great about the renewed confidence that India is beginning to see. If you play that out 10, 20 years, I mean, we'll start to see the magic that China has produced in the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So I think these are the two things that also sort of dent our behavior a little bit, our national behavior, so to speak, trust as well as this confidence.
You're
in
talking
ourselves.
about trust. There's a very good insight which I've seen, which I don't know, maybe you'll agree to it or no. So there's a pattern which I've seen. The trust level on a product or on a brand gets really, really high if you go deeper in India. So tier 1 trust lesser versus tier 4, tier 3. Like tier 3, tier 2, tier 4 people, they trust more on a brand versus tier 1.
Yes.
So the brand loyalty or a customer loyalty is much higher in tier 3, tier 4. If they like certain brand, they'll stick by it, they'll die for it, they want only that brand.
Yes.
Right? They don't want it in tier 1. So there was an insight. So I was I think I was in a village near Madhya Pradesh. It was in a district called Dhar. Okay, the village has like less than 10,000 people. And I was standing in front of a kirana shop where I was trying to sell my products. And there's this one guy who comes up and says, I want that cell which has a cat on it. Billi wala cell chahiye. Okay, and he comes with a remote because he doesn't understand what is AAA battery or AA battery. He comes with it. The shopkeeper says, I don't have it. Okay, you take the different one. He says, no. He's like, when can you have it? He's like, by tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow it'll come. And he left. Like he didn't buy the battery because he was so loyal to one Billi wala cell, and this was shocking for me.
Yes.
This, we would have never done it. In fact, in tier 1, we will go out to a shop and even if we are buying that Billi wala cell, we'll be thinking of 10 other brands at the same time. And we'll keep switching. Oh, this time let me try a new thing. Let me try a new thing. So I've seen this pattern that the tier 2, tier 3, where we feel that Indian growth is, where the Bharat is, where the maximum value creation is going to happen. Yeah. These people are very loyal. I think that is, and for me, I get very optimistic.
And there is a connection to behavioral sciences here. Because if I believe that it's going to be good for me, it'll be good for me as well. There's this thing called placebo effect, which I'm sure you've heard, which is that if you give somebody a placebo, which is just a sugar pill, and tell them that it's a very powerful medicine, people start get better, genuinely get better, because now they feel that this medicine is working. So it's not. So when you go from a branded product, so we're talking about a branded pharmaceutical to a generic pharmaceutical, the reason why people don't want to make the switch is because that Crocin or whatever, that branded pharma is, I know it's working.
Yeah.
And some of it works on me too.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas a similar pill with the same chemical composition, it doesn't do the job. Right. So that, and apparently, the studies have shown that when you look at painkillers, right, if you put a red colored painkiller, somehow we have this feeling that it's going to be more effective. So we believe in advertising. Yeah. We believe in these things, and this actually makes a real difference in how we experience the reality as well.
3 books which an average person should read in order to build $1 billion business.
There is no good book that tells you how to build a business from scratch. I haven't read that book so far.
You should write one.
You
read a lot, you should write one.
Yes, I guess so. But I'm just saying that it's just, I haven't found a book which tells me how to, survive as an entrepreneur for the first 1 year or first 2 years. So what are the stats on entrepreneurship? 50% of all companies shut down in 2 years. 50%. And 98% of companies shut down in 10 years. So entrepreneurship is a 2% game. If you want to survive 10 years, entrepreneurship is a 2% game. Right? And unfortunately, everybody is talking about how to build from that. They're all giving examples of people who have really made it and so on. They're not giving you the first 10 years. How to explore various options that you have, how to experiment, how to take risks, how to survive for the first 18 months. Some of the things I tell entrepreneurs is, first, include your friends and family. Do not do this in a vacuum. Tell all your friends and everyone that you're doing a startup because you want their help. Yeah. Many people, entrepreneurs, what they do is once they start a business, they feel ashamed. that they are doing this. They go into a corner. They don't talk to anybody for the next many months. They think that I'll come out when after I raised $10 million of funding, I've made success, then I'll come out like a rock star. But that takes 10 years. You're not even there. What you want is everybody helping you drive success. So that's what I think we should do is get friends and family involved. Get your parents, your spouse, your classmates, everyone. Tell them this is what I'm doing. Get their input. Doesn't mean that you'll stop doing it, but definitely include them in your journey. That's one. Second, you have to have 18 to 24 months of runway. That 24 months of cash you need to have because you want to survive. No salary for 24 months. Can you survive? If you don't have that, hard. So that's the second one. Third is get a little, at least have one co-founder, we just discussed.
Yeah.
One CTO, CEO, one co-founder, because then you can share the load, share the journey, and share the rewards. Who cares whether I have 50% of the business or 10% of the business or 95% of the business? I feel like, building increase the size of the pie, and how much money does this one need in life, right? Who cares? We all think money is eventually the goal. After you reach a certain wealth, extra wealth is not adding to anything. No happiness is increased. You just want to, and therefore many people think, oh, let me not dilute. They're so fussed about dilution. I'm like, yeah, buzz off, man. What is the impact of dilution? Nothing. You build a great business. You will build an institution that will be there for the next 100 years. That's what success is. That's what happiness is. You're thinking whether it's 10 million versus 20 million. That's not a big deal.
That makes sense. Like it's better to increase the size of the pie rather than just holding everything to yourself.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I'm not gonna give away 2% or 5% or 10%. Makes sense. Okay. Now this is fair. So let's tweak the last question in a way. Like, what are the top 3 books which you feel everybody should read? Forget about entrepreneurship, forget about everything else. It's just like 3 books which you feel everybody should read in order to just understand things in a better way.
Okay. The first book I will suggest is Influence. Influence is one of the most defining books of my life because eventually in life we are always working with other people.
Yeah.
That is one feature of life, that we have to engage with other people.
Yep.
And if there is a book that can help you deal with other people better, it's to understand their human behavior. Therefore, any book that you read on human behavior is good. Influence is a great book, but there are tons of other good books too. Influence would be my number one recommendation on that. Number 2, if you want to basically understand everybody, right? Anybody and everybody, right? And the one book that has made a huge difference to my life is A Man's Search for Meaning. The good thing is that it's Viktor Frankl. It's a very short book. It's 100 and something pages. But it is so powerful because it tells you that happiness is something that you have to find yourself, and you can find meaning even in the toughest circumstances. Because entrepreneurship is actually a rough journey.
Yeah.
Right? You need something that can bolster your confidence and motivation through the journey. A Man's Search for Meaning, I think, is that book.
It's a post-Holocaust, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Viktor Frankl was in the Auschwitz concentration camp, and he survived some 2-3 years in that camp, and then he came out and he built this thing called logotherapy. So he talks about his journey there. So this is a book that was being recommended to me like 20 years ago.
Okay.
And I looked at this book and said, you know what, I have happy things to do. I don't want to read a sad book about somebody being in a concentration camp. Who cares? I really did not want to read this book because it was not going to be a happy book.
That's my zone right now.
Exactly. And then I read that book and I realized, oh my God, it's actually a very happy book. It's a very good book. It's an uplifting book. It's not a sad book. It's an uplifting book. And I felt like I wasted 10 years of my life not reading that book.
Whoa.
Really. Honestly, I feel like it is worth reading because if you read the first 10-20 pages, your rest is very, very powerful and uplifting. And actually it gives you the will to live, will to create, motivation to create. So I think it's a very powerful book.
Okay, that's second. Third.
I'll suggest 2 books. You have an option. One is a book called Life 3.0.
Okay.
It's a very powerful book on where AI is going and what it can do. It's written by a guy called Max Tegmark. He's a mathematician, physicist. He's written some other very good books too. But Life 3.0 gives you a very good overview of where AI technologies are headed. If you want to get inspired by AI and also sufficiently scared by AI, Life 3.0 is a really good one. If you want to really look at the very bad consequence of AI and how AI will change the world, I think Super Intelligence is another book which is very good. It's called Super Intelligence. It's written by an Oxford professor called Nick Bostrom. That's a very powerful book too. I think these will not give you techniques on tools to, because there are a lot of these, you can always find them, but it give you the reason why AI will be so successful, and the excitement and the fear of AI will be very palpable when you read these books.
What do you feel is the next big industry where people can make insane amount of money? Is it going to be health tech? Is it going to be ed tech? Is it going to be fintech? What's going to be the next, like what's the next big thing according to you?
My sense is that consumer tech is where the big bucks are going to be in India, because India is going to go through a similar revolution, obviously in a much bigger way as US or China, etc.
So what do you mean by consumer tech?
Meaning any B2C tech.
Can you give me examples?
It could be fintech, it could be health tech, it could be any tech, but as long as it is involving a end consumer as opposed to a B2B tech. If you play in India, my suggestion is do consumer tech. If you play in elsewhere in the world, you do B2B tech. But in India, consumer tech is going to be huge. It could be, for example, WhatsApp is consumer tech.
Got it.
Right? In the sense that it is a communication device of India, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is on WhatsApp. Everybody talks to everybody else on WhatsApp. So if you build a consumer tech product, anything in consumer tech is going to be the big success, because India is going to go from here. It is going to be the fastest growing economy for the next 20, 30 years. So that means
play the volume game in India.
Yes, the consumer tech game in India. That's where I think the big bucks are going to be. And one evergreen industry that we did not speak about is private equity. That's the other place. If you want to make very significant economics for yourself, if money is really what you're looking at, and the exposure and the experience of investing in great companies, private equity is another industry. It's very hard to get into the industry, but the economics of the industry are very favorable to the people who are in the industry. So that's another industry that always makes money for the people who get into the industry. So if you can join a private equity industry on the buy side of things, it's very powerful. There are very few jobs there, so it's not going to be the answer for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a very powerful industry for people to be in as well.
Interesting. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for giving your time and all the insights which you have. I was just talking about it that most of the times this happens, like when guest comes in, they give me 1 or 2 ideas to now think for next week. You have given me at least 10. Now I don't know how 10 next 10 weeks are going to look like, because you've given me so many things to think about, so many things to worry about, be excited about, that I can't thank you enough for all of this, because
Thank you.
Genuinely, because there have been things which I would have never thought. Forget knowing, I would have never thought. And thanks for enlightening us with all of this. This has been a great podcast for me. I hope to get you again. Thank you so much for watching this episode till the end. I'm really grateful that you gave out your time and effort to watch something like this. And I'm proud of you, because the first step is actually making a constant effort to learn and understand about the future, about the business, about yourself, and about learning how to get better every day. So if you have done this, give yourself a pat on the back, because this is one of the most important steps which you can take to better your career, and make sure that you don't miss out on the next important step as well. And that is sharing, liking, commenting, and engaging with this particular episode. And also, you need to make sure that you share it with your friends, family, strangers, and tell the world that what did you learn from this episode, because you never know what you can learn while telling them, or what they can learn while watching this. Maybe that one insight can be a life-changing insight for all of us. And that's how we're going to help India grow. That's how we're going to take this world to a better place. Just help each other grow with better conversations, with better learnings, and sharing and taking care of each other. Until the next episode, keep figuring out.